Coming up, Defense Secretary nominee fights for his nomination. Democrats want a flurry of preemptive pardons, and Joy Reid has an unhinged rant about Donald Trump. Pete Hegseth, the nominee for Defense Secretary, is fighting for his position against scurrilous accusations. At the Capitol today, he stated that he is definitely not retracting his nomination and that he will keep fighting, and that Donald Trump has urged him to keep fighting. Hegseth fighting shows exactly the type of behaviour you would want in this game. You want a lot of fight in the dog, not a pussycat. The establishment is very concerned about the direction Hegseth wants to take. No more pandering to minorities and DEI and LGBTQ alphabet issues that are not central to the defence mission. Hegseth has stated that he wants to focus on lethality as primary and secondary objectives. The establishment would prefer to keep defence focusing on social justice issues in preference.
I spoke to the president-elect this morning. He said, keep going, keep fighting. Behind you all the way.
So you're in this all the way?
Why would I back down? I've always been a fighter. I'm here for the more fighters. This is personal passion for me.
Hi, Mr. Hegseth. Will you be dropping out?
No.
No? Does Trump still have confidence in you?
Yes.
Have you talked to him recently?
Yes.
First, if you like this content, please like, share and subscribe. It really helps. The scurrilous behaviour of the media is demonstrated by their behaviour, not only in not actually interviewing colleagues of Hegseth's at Fox, but also in publishing a personal email Hegseth's mother Penelope wrote to him in 2018 during his divorce. She has gone on Fox News and stated that she sent the email in emotional haste, stating that she tends to be emotional and shoot from the hip, something her husband apparently counselled her on a number of occasions. As it is, she sent an apology retracting that email a couple of hours later. Of course, the legacy media did not report that fact. Just as bad was the media threatening Hegseth's mother if she did not agree to be interviewed by those programs. This is the same legacy media that is freaking out about podcasters making up part of the White House press corps, with some outlets threatening to pull out of the press corps. This shows a complete lack of awareness on their position these days. We're not living in the late 20th century anymore, and far more people are getting their news from podcasters and X than they are from legacy media. They are welcome to leave the press corps. They won't be missed.
It was a very emotional time, and I'm sure many of you across the country understand how difficult divorce is on a family. There's emotions. We say things, and I wrote that in haste. I wrote that with deep emotions. I wrote that as a parent, and about 2 hours later, my husband tells me I should think through things a little bit more, but Pete and I are both very passionate people. I wrote that out of love. And about 2 hours later, I retracted it with an apology email, but nobody's seen that. So it was a difficult time. I want to say something about the media. And part of today is to discredit the media and how they operate. When they contact you, I let a few phone calls go, but then they call you and say they threaten you. That's the first thing they do. Right. They say, unless you make a statement, we will publish it as is.
Fox News mounted a spirited defence of Hegseth, slamming other media using unnamed sources in a witch hunt and not bothering to speak to Hegseth's colleagues at Fox. Fox has the view that the legacy media is desperately trying to get Hegseth to quit or otherwise be removed prior to the hearings, as Hegseth is deeply impressive and would do very well at the confirmation hearings. This, yet again, is the legacy left-wing media trying to push their woke agenda and fighting a desperate rearguard action, as they know the gig is up.
On the Pete Hegseth thing, I think people getting way ahead of it. They've just been jumping all over him like they were jumping all over some earlier picks. But evidently, when his one-on-one meetings, he's been very impressive. And doesn't surprise, I don't think anybody that knows him here. He knows his stuff. He's got the vision. He fought in the wars. Recruiting is already picking up since he's actually been someone who's been nominated coming forward, because they know they're going to change the culture and make it more soldier-friendly. Right. And the other thing he's got, I mean, if you look at what he's done in the background, I think today is going to be huge, because Senator Roger Wicker has a new vision for the Pentagon on procurement, on spreading out our military base, growing it so we can service our allies when people buy weapon systems, be able to get them, while at the same time spending wisely while increasing spending. He's got the vision. So when he sits down with Roger Wicker, if he can walk out of that meeting and impress him with the vision and the ability to run a department that big and give him an idea of who we put underneath him, that will go a long way.
There's an effort to stop this nomination before the hearings because they know that's where he's going to shine the most. They know that he knows his stuff. He's a Harvard guy. He's a Princeton guy. He's been talking about this stuff for years. He wrote a whole book about transforming the military, the way that we're doing things, and the wokeness. And by the way, there's reports coming out there that we've known it for years, that we know that's just not true. And the fact that they're going out there with unnamed sources when we sit on the couch.
The View has a crazy position on Hegseth. First, they pay scant attention to the fact that divorces are highly emotional events at the best of times, and that the worst divorces, pretty much anyone, will have certain times when they react in an emotional manner in a way that they normally would not. Then you have Alyssa Farah Griffin using the argument that it absolutely matters if you have an affair, etc., as Defence Secretary, and that these are questions that the military asks candidates for clearances and check backgrounds. The point that she is either overlooking or deliberately underrating is that the reason for this is not that the issues in and of themselves are an issue, but the issues perhaps being secret to the person or their family, and that would potentially be a weak point for someone wanting to blackmail the service member into revealing secrets with a threat of making public those types of issues, such as affairs. Here I speak as a former Member of Parliament in Australia who had access to classified information. I did not have to undertake any of these background checks, although when I was a defence analyst, I absolutely had to go through background checks to obtain clearances. The point is, in politics, and particularly something as public as the Pete Hegseth issue, all of these issues are already out in public. So a potential blackmailer does not have that potential threat that could be made in order to blackmail him.
Secretary of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff have largely stayed above reproach in terms of character. And the reason is because in national security and the people who run the U.S. military, they're aware that America's enemies are constantly looking at them, and they're looking at things to exploit. They're looking. So when I went through my background check, they asked, do you have debt? Are you a gambler? Are you addicted to pornography? Have you had affairs? These things,
felonies.
These things matter because they think, could you be blackmailed? Could you be exploited by enemies? When you have all this power to make life and death decisions. It doesn't matter that much if you had an affair and you run the Department of Commerce. Having a questionable record with women and abuse allegations at DOD absolutely matters.
Now we go to the issue of the pardon of Hunter Biden. First, the left-wing legacy media tried making the arguments, as I have stated previously, that it was necessary for Joe Biden to pardon Hunter to protect the poor boy against those bullies in the Republican Party, and particularly Donald Trump, would be out to get him. So, not only a pardon for the actual crimes, but for anything in an 11-year period. Now the legacy media want to go further. They want to preemptively pardon people like Andrew McCabe, Mark Esper and others, as they state that the justice system is going to be politicised, like it hasn't been for the last 4 years. CNN floated this idea as an idea, and once again, this is not for actual crimes, but essentially absolve them of anything that they have done for a certain time period. No specificity required. This is, like the Hunter Biden 11 years, unprecedented.
If the point is about the concerns that Trump is coming into office and, the people he's appointing might target Hunter Biden even further than this, even though, he was found guilty by a jury of his peers, I should note, why not pardon Andrew McCabe and Gina Haspel and Mark Esper and all these people that are on their target list if you say that, that's why, that's the motivation here?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through this, down this rabbit hole now where allegations of the justice system being politicized or being thrown around on both sides. I think it's bad for the country. I do think there should be a real process to pardon people. I think the Biden administration has been lax on that. But if you're going to do it, don't just do it for your son. There are a lot of people who the Trump administration might go after, protect them. And there are a lot of just everyday people who are sitting there, been begging for relief for years and years. If you're going to do it, don't just do it for your son. There are a lot of American sons and daughters who could use the same kind of.
Worse than that, MSNBC is actually, in a delusional way, pushing in a real way for preemptive pardons for people like Jack Smith, his staffers, and others at the DOJ. Watch.
Grant of clemency. I hope that President Biden will also issue preemptive pardons to all of those people threatened by the injustice of what will become the Department of Justice in the Trump administration. That, of course, includes Jack Smith and all of his staff, many Department of Justice lawyers. It includes President Biden himself.
Finally, we have Joy Reid going on an unhinged rant about Donald Trump. She criticises him for muscling other countries, for pushing Hamas to release all hostages, or the US will rain hell on them if they don't, among other things. Seems like we have a bit of an unidentified Hamas supporter here, among other things.
Let's bring you back to the US and to our local gangster, Donald Trump. He's not even president yet, and he's already spending his time sitting in his golden palace, Mar-a-Lago, muscling other countries like he's Tony Soprano with a social media site. Doing things like, reportedly, debating whether or not to invade Mexico. Threatening BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with 100% tariffs if they don't commit to trading in dollars and not their own currencies. Demanding Hamas release all hostages being held in Gaza before his inauguration, or there will be, quote, all...
Isn't what she is talking about here exactly what you would want from a US president? We've already seen the US meekly going about international relations, essentially being apologetic for being the most powerful, richest nation on earth. The first half of the 20th century showed what the world looks like and how the world would behave with the US absent from the field. The entire planet benefits when the US has a strong global posture. Trump is behaving in exactly the way you would want the US president to behave. What do you think? What is your view of the attack on Pete Hegseth? Please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.